Chad Johnson made nearly $47 million playing wide receiver, and he spent most of his career sleeping inside a stadium, wearing fake jewelry from a mall kiosk, and flying coach on Spirit. The richest man in the locker room by choice looked the poorest. Here's why. Let's start with what he actually earned, because the whole story falls apart without it. Across 11 seasons in the NFL, Chad Johnson banked just under $47 million in salary alone. He wasn't a benchwarmer cashing a roster check. Either. He was the real thing. Over 11,000 receiving yards, 67 touchdowns, 6 Pro Bowl selections, and a season where he led the entire league in yards. This is a first ballot kind of resume. A guy with numbers like that is supposed to be dripping in diamonds, parked in a fleet of Lamborghinis, living in a mansion with a fountain in the driveway. And Chad? Chad did the exact opposite. Not because he was broke, because he decided the whole game was rigged, and he wasn't going to play it. Here's where it gets strange. Most rookies sign that first big contract and immediately go house hunting. Chad signed his and asked to move into the building where he worked. He lived inside the Bengals' stadium for his first 2 seasons. No apartment, no condo, no mortgage. And his logic was almost impossible to argue with. The facility had showers. It had a cafeteria with food already paid for. It had a couch, a TV, a gaming system, everything a 23-year-old could possibly want. So why, he asked, would he pay for a second place to keep a bed he barely slept in? It got so extreme that his own head coach, Marvin Lewis, eventually had to walk up to him in year 3 and basically order him to go rent something. Think about that. The coach wasn't worried about his star receiver partying too hard. He was worried the man wouldn't leave the office. Now let's talk about the jewelry, because this is where Chad turned cheap into an art form. In a league where guys wear diamond chains worth more than most people's homes, where a Richard Mille or an iced-out Rolex is practically the dress code, Chad walked around in fakes. Not subtle fakes from Claire's, the accessory shop tucked between a Cinnabon and a phone case stand in your local mall. And his reasoning was pure cold logic. Why drop $50,000, $80,000 on a watch, he asked, when a $20 piece shines the exact same way the second light hits it? It's not just that he was saving money, it's that he genuinely couldn't see the point. Time is free, he liked to say. So what exactly are you paying for? While his teammates were financing hardware, Chad was buying the illusion for the price of a movie ticket and laughing all the way to the bank. Let's break down the genius of what we can only call Chad math. The standard millionaire move is to buy the $200,000 supercar. The moment your tires hit the street outside the dealership, that car sheds $40,000 in value. You just paid an average person's entire yearly salary to drive across the parking lot. Chad looked at that and saw insanity. He'd rather buy a $20 fake watch. If it breaks, who cares? If he loses it at a club, who cares? He could buy a brand new one every single day for decades before he ever touched what one luxury car loses in depreciation. He didn't just dodge the bad investment, he flipped the entire equation. Why buy something expensive to look like a star when you already are the star? The watch can't make you, so why let it break you? And the savings didn't stop at watches and houses, it went all the way down to what he ate. This is the part that makes people do a genuine double take. During the prime of his career, Chad Johnson was eating McDonald's almost every single day. No private chef, no nutritionist hovering over his plate, no grass-fed, monk-caught salmon, just the dollar menu. He said point blank that a chef is an added expense he simply doesn't want, and that fast food made more sense to him because it was affordable and it worked. Now picture the matchup. Modern athletes have sleep pods, hyperbaric chambers, and kale smoothies that taste like fresh-cut lawn, all to chase a 1% edge. And then there's Chad torching double coverage, breaking ankles, dancing in the end zone, running entirely on sausage McMuffins. It wasn't just a diet, it was psychological warfare. He didn't just beat you, he beat you on a $5 budget. And here's the kicker, he loved the chain so much, he eventually bought 3 McDonald's franchises of his own. But maybe the most legendary detail of all is how the man travels. NFL stars charter private jets, leather recliners, personal attendants, the whole fantasy. Chad flies Spirit. In his words, exit row, window seat, that's all he needs, as long as he gets from point A to point B. A man with over $40 million in the bank, willingly folding himself into a budget airline middle seat. probably arguing at the gate about whether his McDonald's bag counts as a personal item. And why? Because a private jet runs around $20,000 an hour, and a Spirit ticket costs $49 and a little bit of your dignity. Both planes land on the same runway at the same time. To Chad, that math isn't even a debate. It's just obvious. But underneath all the jokes, there's something very real driving this. Because Chad had seen what happens to guys who don't think this way. There's a brutal statistic that's haunted pro sports for years. A 2009 Sports Illustrated report found that within just 2 years of retirement, 78% of former NFL players were bankrupt or under serious financial stress. 78%. These are warriors on the field who get completely lost the moment the checks stop. Chad stood in that locker room and watched it happen in real-time, teammates pouring millions into supercars, empty mansions, all-night parties, and the silent killer that gets almost everyone, the entourage. The second that signing bonus clears, suddenly every cousin and high school buddy wants to be your manager. Players stop funding a lifestyle and start funding an entire unprofitable village. Chad sidestepped all of it. It's hard for hangers-on to mooch off a guy who lives in a stadium and whose idea of a big night out is the drive-thru. So when you add it all up, his frugality was never about being cheap. It was about buying the one thing money usually can't touch: freedom. Chad drew a hard line early. No debt, no crushing mortgage, no becoming a hostage to a lifestyle he had to keep feeding. And that gave him a privilege almost no superstar ever gets to feel. He never had to chase a contract just to cover his own bills. If he got cut tomorrow, he'd still sleep 8 hours a night. No bank knocking on the door to repossess anything. He even interned at Morgan Stanley to understand the money better. He saw the trap clearly: make a fortune, spend the fortune maintaining the fortune, then grind right back to feed the same lifeless things. He stepped out of that loop entirely. By his own estimate, he saved around 83% of everything he ever earned. 83%. And here's what makes it real instead of an act he never stopped. The cameras faded, the contracts ended, and Chad kept living exactly the same way. Still flying Spirit. Still loving McDonald's. Still completely unbothered by what anyone thinks the number in his account might be. You don't stay that consistent through fame, unless that's just who you already were. In a world where people go into credit card debt over a designer belt just to convince strangers online that they're winning, Chad Johnson figured out the cheat code. The poor man's aesthetic was the ultimate flex in disguise, a quiet way of saying, I'm so secure I don't need a shiny piece of metal to prove I exist. He might look broke, but the way he lives? That's something most millionaires will never be able to afford. So what do you think, who's actually rich? The one who has the money and burns it all? Or the one who never even felt the need to spend it? Drop your answer in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories on the people who play the money game by their own rules.